Have you ever wondered why you go into a grocery store needing 2 items and you actually end up leaving with 2 full bags that you can barely carry to the car? Well, my name is Amy Ehrman. I work here at AUT, and I'm an expert in shopper and consumer behavior. And I'm here today to answer your questions about why shopping matters. Now, an excellent question that someone had was, why is my Instagram feed full of ads for products I don't want? And I find this question fascinating because from my perspective, sometimes I think, why are the ads almost so targeted to what I do want? The answer to both of these is around what we call programmatic advertising. So programmatic advertising is basically an algorithm in which you yourself have an avatar online and advertisers understand something about you. So they might understand your age, they might understand your marital status, some of what we call psychographics, what you're interested in, and they can actually target these either successfully or very unsuccessfully. If you find that you're seeing, scrolling through Instagram and you see a wacky product come up that has nothing to do with your interests, that may have been programmatic advertising algorithms gone wrong and them completely targeting the wrong person. Versus if you're scrolling through your phone and you see something and you thought, I just bought that product yesterday, or I've been thinking about it, that's programmatic advertising gone right. So building on top of that, someone also had a question around what's the deal with cookies? So not about the cookies that you eat. Cookies are basically a third-party service where you will allow your data and information to be collected about you online. Now, there's been some recent legislation where you can actually reject cookies. So website hosts or, website providers are not allowed to collect information about you if you reject this versus if you accept it. Now, the risk if you do accept is that companies might know a whole lot about you and they'll be able to target you very successfully. If you reject it, that's when you're going to start to notice that, again, these ads might not be super relevant to you, or the information that you're seeing online doesn't have a lot of shared interests with you. The next question is, I want to achieve influencers' looks, but every time I follow an influencer, I feel ugly. How can I use social media without feeling bad about myself? So, excellent question, and I think relevant to a lot of different age groups. We have a theory in marketing called self-concept, and that's actually how we perceive ourselves. So when you see an influencer online, they can be either close to your self-concept, so maybe you see them as somewhat relatable. You might not necessarily feel very bad about yourself. But if you have an aspirational self that is very far away from the way that you perceive yourself, my advice would be try and follow some influencers that maybe you have a shared interest with, but don't actually make you feel that far off from your own personality. Someone asks, why is everyone buying ugly Crocs? Very great question. I see these Crocs all over the place. I've noticed that they're becoming very popular also with younger cohort of ages, kids around, 8 to 10. Everyone now has a pair of Crocs. And the answer to this is that within consumption of fashion, we have something that we call quiet versus loud luxury. So quiet products are products that might have small logos, they might not be super identifiable, and on the other end of the spectrum, you have loud luxury. So very, loud colors, big logos, and sometimes very distinctive shapes, like Crocs. And what we've been noticing is that with consumption, especially around younger cohorts, something called distinctive ugliness is coming into fashion. So people are kind of opting for clothing that actually might be very recognizable. And it's a statement to say, I don't care what people think of me, or, I'm trying to stand out, but also I'm signaling to others within my in-group that we kind of have the same fashion sense. So this is why you'll see a lot of, trends and types of clothing go viral around schoolyards, even within your working office, and you think, why would someone be wearing this? But the answer is because other people are, and you're wanting to signal to each other. So have a look around and you might notice some examples of quiet or loud luxury. Now we have a bit of a question around retail shopping. And someone asks, how do brands trick us into buying things we don't need without feeling bad about our purchases? So it's an excellent question. And I think that a lot of us, when we go either into a grocery store, into a retail shop, we always get sucked into that product that maybe we weren't planning on purchasing, but that makes us feel good. So there was some research done back in the 90s, and actually it was around our dopamine. So what actions make us have this rush of energy and kind of that feel good, emotion. So this happens to you after you've done a run or maybe after you've worked out. It also happens to us after we buy something. So there's a study done with monkeys. We share a lot of our DNA with monkeys, and they're quite often used in experiments in psychology. And they had a canister of juice out, and every time the monkeys would go to press the button and the juice would come out, they would test their dopamine, their reactions. So they noticed originally that when the monkeys started pressing the button to let the juice out, they'd get this feel-good dopamine rush. But after a while, they actually would get this rush before they press the button. And that happens to us when we shop. So pay attention when you're shopping. You may notice that the anticipation of thinking about a product before you buy it actually makes you happier and gives you that feel-good energy rather than post-purchase, rather than when you're actually using it. So one way to kind of maybe avoid the temptation of getting, persuaded into buying something you don't need is to maybe go window shopping. You might want to test out some op shops, see if you can get something that's been upcycled. Because if you are looking for that feel-good rush of energy, you might not feel so bad rather than going out and buying something brand new. All right, and dovetailing off of this question, we're still in retail, but we have a question about supermarkets. So someone asks, how can I avoid temptation at the supermarket? So really excellent question. And when we think about the supermarket, we have to think about the way that we shop and the way that, we move around the store. So there's been lots of research looking at heat maps of where people walk. And typically when someone goes into a grocery store, they stick around the perimeter. So they may go into, the fresh fruit and veg aisle. They may head straight to the dairy section at the back, but typically they're using the perimeter of the store, and they're not necessarily going right into the aisles. And this is where you'll also find a lot of those impulse items. So if you walk around your grocery store, pay attention to what you're seeing on, the end shelves, at the end of the aisles, what type of impulse items you might see, in the bakery or near the fruit and veggie that might not have anything to do with baked goods or fruit and veggie, but are just there to entice you. Also, when you move through purchasing and you go through the cashier, think about if maybe you want to use an aisle that is free of confectionery, for example, because all of these can be really excellent temptations for us. And I can tell you myself, when I do go to the grocery store, sometimes I walk out with a couple of items that I don't need that I picked up around the perimeter. So make a list, plan it, try and stick to the interior and get what you need. That's my advice. Now we have a question around shopping and environments. So someone asks, how does the environment of a shop create different patterns in my purchasing preferences? This is a really interesting question, and it has to do with how we immerse ourselves based on our senses, our five senses. So, you may have noticed that, for example, when you listen to music, if something is a bit of an upbeat tempo, you might notice that you get a little bit more, agitated or excited versus if you're listening to something like classical music. So this works the same in shops. So, for example, you might walk into a store like the Chemist Warehouse where you'll have, exciting music playing, lots of products kind of cluttering the space, a lot of discounts going on at once. That environment is really there to get you to buy a high volume of goods and to really make you distracted in your environment. Now, we can take the opposite of this, and if you've ever been into a luxury product shop, something, for example, like Gucci, you may notice you walk in and you only see one or two types of products that are on the rack. This is done on purpose. It's called scarcity to give you the feeling that there's a very small amount of these products available, when in reality, there may be more in the back. The second that someone buys it, it could be replaced. So depending on how the atmosphere of a retail store makes you feel, might get you a little bit excited, get you wanting to have an impulse purchase, versus on the other end of the spectrum, might get you to be a little more mindful and slow down. The last question is, why would I go to the mall when I can order what I need from my couch? This question, I think, is on the back of all of our minds because online ordering has become so easy. And the very short answer is typically when you need the product right away. So, you may be sitting on your couch and scrolling through products to buy, but it might take anywhere from 2 days to 5 days to arrive, and you actually need it before that time. So it's the convenience factor that actually gets us up from the couch off into the mall. There's another couple of reasons why, and that might be to actually try on the product that you want. So we call this showrooming. So you may go to the store, maybe you're looking for a pair of sneakers, you try it on in the shop. The interesting thing is you actually might end up loving the product and buying it online if you can find it cheaper. So consumers are very savvy these days about what we call our path to purchase and the patterns in shopping, in that it's not linear anymore. Marketers used to think that consumers thought about the product, went to the brick and mortar shop, physical shop, and then went home and used the product. And now it's this kind of squiggly line. We might go to the shop, try it on, come home, order it from our couch, or vice versa. So some really interesting ways in thinking about, our comfort at home and how we do online shopping versus when we actually need to go to the store. So thank you so much for your questions. Looking forward to more of them coming in. And I hope this made you think about shopping in a different way.